Confetti. Streamer here with airplanes, bugs, flowers, cars, people, guitars. Little bits and pieces of this and that. Them, they, us, those, spiders, birds, crawfish, ducks, city streets, buildings, links, and trees. What do you think it all means? Soap opera, what? Soap opera. Villains, heroes, bodywork, weird visual stuff, weird oral stuff, music, water, rocks, flying saucers, UFOs, street festivals. Confetti. 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 Confetti.
You know him as Lieutenant Jack Boot of Haw Falls, a segment in Confetti. I know him as Sam Gaines, a writer in his own right. For the next 29 and a half minutes we'll be listening to Sam and his little stories. So I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Sam is writing and
this first thing's called Waiting. It's a essay kind of thing. In many ways, it was one of the most exhilarating days of my life. It was a beautiful September day, cooled by the winds diving down the mine-wearied slopes of the surrounding West Virginia hills. It was early in my first season as a starter on the Logan Central Junior High football team, and although we had lost our first 2 games, we were still full of hope and promise. And we played so well. We were even leading 12-0 in the second quarter as our defense spread into the now dated 52 formation. Playing quarterback, I drifted close to the receiver, hoping to check him on the line, then keep step with any deep route he might run. He didn't. He charged to back me off, then shaded into the flat. I saw it coming, broke on the ball, and before I knew it, the ball was squarely in my hands. I was dashing frantically toward their end zone, my stubby legs chopping up moist earth with thoughtless fury. With only their quarterback to beat, and he a far superior athlete to me, I was running for the only glory I would ever know in forgettable attempts at organized sports. And with a dive and a smashing stick from his shoulder pads, I edged into the end zone. Touchdown. Of course, it was called back because of a penalty, on me, of all things, and so I was denied. We won the game anyway, and I got a bunch of good-natured ribbing from my teammates. I was on top of my world as I left our locker room, and that's when I saw him around the corner of the stands, waiting to see me emerge, my father. He wore his navy blue windbreaker, its collar turned up to deflect the stiff breeze. His head hung down. He seemed to stare at a cigarette he had stubbed out, and kept stubbing out with his right loafer. He wore the same green work pants I had grown so accustomed to seeing him in. My urge was the natural one, run, and I had to fight it with all I had in order to decide what to do. After all, the man I believed to be in the state psychiatric hospital in Charleston, West Virginia, the same man who had taught me almost everything I knew about this game and had beaten me with a baseball bat when I didn't learn to his satisfaction, was now standing out 30 yards from me, directly in my path home. Dad had been a high school All-American. At NC State, he was the backup to Roman Gabriel, who was a star with the Los Angeles Rams in the 1960s. But then he saw his knees battered with repeated injuries. He was later drafted by the pros, but his knees were gone, and so were his chances. His promising football career thus ended. All I had known of him in my life was a tortured, violent man, hospitalized repeatedly, and sometimes voluntarily, for his bizarre outbursts. He was alternately diagnosed as schizophrenic and a psychotic manic depressive, and alternately medicated, electrified, tied down, whatever doctors could think of to still him until the worst passed. The worst of his behavior was sexual and violent, a reenactment of what he had known as a boy, I would later learn from him, and was therefore kept a secret in my immediate family for years. Yet occasionally he had these periods of kindness and clarity, when he emerged from his dungeon of demonic memories and tormenting impulses to act a decent father to me, sharing the passions for sports, for the outdoors, for what little was offered to men and boys coming of age in the 60s and 70s. Pending these latest of the shock treatments he received, his commitment papers were limited to 30 days by law. I had simply lost count, and he had come to see me do my pathetic best to organize football, his game. What should I do? I stepped back into the shadow of our locker room's entryway and figured out another way home. It would be easy enough, and he would never know where I'd gone. He would know that I had ducked him, though, and there would be hell to pay for that somewhere along the line. There was only one thing to do. I stuffed my dirty uniform in a bag, slung it over my shoulder, tucked my school books under an arm, and I stepped toward him. I would be his son. "Hi, Dad." I was a good 10 yards away, still enough room to turn tail if need be. He had lit another cigarette, and through a cloud of Pall Mall he answered, "Hey, son." He looked up for only a moment. That and another drag on his Pall Mall were the only breaks in the bracing stillness between us. "That was one hell of a run back you had out there. I didn't know you had that kind of speed in you," he finally said as he smiled. "It's not hard to run fast when you're scared to death," I said and smiled hopefully. I looked into the dark recesses of his eyes and marveled at how handsome a man he was. clean-shaven, broad-shouldered, sharp-boned, a man's man. I could look no more and prayed for some direction. He did laugh, and I regained my nervous smile. "That's the God's truth," he said. "Surer than shit, that's the God's truth. Now how about I buy a burger for the touchdown maker?" I was about to tell him that it didn't count, the penalty nullified it and all that, but I held it back. I walked to his side, and to my disbelief he curled me under his arm. With slow, deliberate steps, he led me to the Bordenburger just up the road from the stadium as the afternoon faded from our lives. Along the way, he told me the stories he had told me 100 times, if once, about his gridiron glories, and I was warmed in his glow, too. Indeed, it would be one of the only times, and the last time, my father and I would share this mystery of goodness in the midst of the insanity that blackened his life and mine. Okay, this is called Soft Night. I get christened in the lifeline chill of your bed. The breeze will laugh out of this night's charred mouth, beating sweat down the trough of my back. You a distant figure, a horizon, giving shape to the absence I'm sweating out of my groin. Your cat pounces on my foot, and I cannot help but laugh and call his name. He trills, then steps proudly toward me. I stroke his soft back like it matters, like anything could. So if all life is suffering, and all suffering an illusion, why does your cat purr? Where is my breath? What is my name? When is this moment? Defiant, proud in my body is the should, the shroud of this moment, now. But I am cocooned in the shame I'm too tired to beat back. Sleep a fickle tease, your nighttime companion, now half laughed off my eyelids. Shame like methamphetamine curling my limbs, licking my groin insensate, and you hitting the snooze button with every breath. Did you know I brought my father to bed with us? I did not, but he turns on his back, toward me, obscuring your distant, gentle curves with his hostile muscles and torpid fat. He laughs like he knew all along, and he did. I recede into my no man's land, yet again leaving sense to the night. And this is such a hard night for such a soft man, such a hard truth for such a soft night. Night football. I ought to warn you, Patrice is a little anal. A house cleaning Nazi? A nag, really. A bitch, often. But it's all pretty much water off Doug's back. Just ignore her like Doug does. Unsettled already, I'm braced for what is mapping out to be a pretty shitty night. Shouldn't have gotten into this Monday night football rotation, I'm saying inside as I draw my knees up so my calves hug Jimmy's Honda seat. The new car smell is still strong in this baby. It fills my head with the unfamiliar. Jimmy and I are headed toward northwest Greensboro, near the airport. It's a cool night for so early in fall. Doug seems like an okay guy, I say to Jimmy. Real nice. But he doesn't seem like the kind who would put up with a browbeating for long, you know? Jimmy's quick to respond. He's always been real low-key. Whatever happens is okay with him, you know? Jimmy turns right into a fairly new development, pocked by small lots, tall A-frames with tiny yards, double-entrance driveways with two-car garages. There's a pattern here I pick up. Streets named after English kings. I just don't like this. Patrice has had it tough. Jimmy's her second husband. First one drank away his paychecks, then emptied the savings account and ran off with a barmaid from where he did most of his drinking. Patrice took it hard, like anyone would, really. It left a bad taste in her mouth. So when she and Doug got married, they signed prenuptial agreements, set up separate accounts, Jimmy's explaining to me. Separate accounts? Yeah, like I said, Doug doesn't really care. I've only met them once before, at a Super Bowl party at Jimmy's house. It was a few years back, when Denver was getting thrashed by San Francisco or the Giants or somebody. Super Bowls all run together after a while. Doug's a paramedic from Denver, definitely a big fan. But while he wasn't too concerned with his team's performance, his mood got perceptibly worse as Patrice dug into him all night long. Little stuff, too, like you hear an overbearing mom laying into a kid for. Doug, watch that, you're going to spill. And Doug, don't sit like that, your back will get stiff and you'll toss and turn all night and I won't get any sleep tonight. And Doug, don't drink another one, you've got to work tomorrow. On and on and on. Sure, he's a pretty even-keel guy and he was trying to ignore her, but even so it was registering. I remember saying something to Jimmy about it later on, and he told me that what I had just seen was nothing. He had seen Patrice really lay into Doug, loudly, hatefully, in a restaurant one time. Yep, this was going to suck. Just watch the game, I'm telling myself. If all else fails, I'll tell Jimmy I'm tired or sick or something, and we can bolt. I remember I used to hear my grandmother, a pretty tough old gal herself, describe women as handsome. I never understood how a woman could be handsome. Beautiful or cute or sexy or plain or charming or kind looking, sure, but handsome was for men. Yet when Patrice greases at the door, that very description occurs to me, and I think of how much my grandmother gets on my nerves. Patrice is wearing an Aladdin t-shirt from the Disney cartoon, I'm guessing, and pink and blue lycra sweatpants. A cat is winding itself around her unnaturally tanned calves. She has what looks like a commemorative plate in her hand, which she is wiping nervously as we say, "Hi, Patrice." I figure she's probably forgotten who I am, so I introduce myself. "Patrice, I'm Darren. I met Doug and you a few years ago at Jimmy's." "Of course I remember you, Dean. Now come on in and sit down. It's cold out." First of all, I was halfway in when she says this. Second, it isn't cold. Even if it was, it probably wouldn't be any colder than it is inside Patrice and Doug's house. Third, she got my name wrong. Fourth, she talks like I'm letting precious air outside, and that, not my comfort, God forbid, accounts for her great haste to get this door shut. She tells Jimmy hi and asks after Verna, his girlfriend. "She's fine, Patrice," Jimmy says. She offers to take my coat, but I decide to keep it. "I'm still a little chilly. I think I'll keep it until I warm up," I tell her. She looks at me like I'm different. "Suit yourself," she says. "Suit yourself. I hate it when people tell me to suit myself. It's as though that they somehow don't approve of me doing just that. So I'm already a little irritated, heading for the couch in this cold house. Patrice heads toward the back of the house. Jimmy sits right next to me. "Doug will be out in a second," Patrice says. "He's got a few more things to do before he plays." "Before he plays?" I look at Jimmy. He just smiles and rolls his eyes. As I examine a perfectly aligned and spaced row of remotes, trying to figure out which handles the TV and cable box, I notice that, like the remotes, everything in this room, in this house, is perfectly aligned or spaced or displayed. I spot a Zenith remote and figure that to be the one, but I'm suddenly unsure of myself and decide not to pick it up. That persnickety order is reflected everywhere else in this room, too. Even on the entertainment center fake wood thing, where a bunch of glass and stuffed cat and Disney character curios are aligned in rows, each slightly larger than the one before it. Incredible, I think. Needless to say, there is not so much as a speck on the walls, only pictures of Patrice, including a solo prom shot and one of those "I'm drinking beer on the back of a chartered fishing boat" poses that people seem to have in their houses. The carpet looks like someone filled his mouth with soap and licked it clean. I notice that another cat has spread itself comfortably near the TV set, while the first one seems to be stalking me, moving cautiously from the entranceway to the dining room without taking its glare from me. Jimmy just grabs the remote with a confidence that comes with familiarity. He switches on the ESPN pregame show. As the volume comes on, I hear Patrice say something stern to Doug, her words forced through her mouth tight with anger. Doug responds tiredly, "I am thankful I can hear none of this." Jimmy and I are getting into the pregame analysis, a player profile of John Elway, some old game films, when Doug emerges. "Kansas City must run the ball at least 35 times to win. The Broncos must force them to throw on first down, get them out of their offensive rhythm," intones analyst Chris Mortensen. "Hi, Doug," Jimmy says. I'm already standing, remembering my manners and stiffly offering my hand. "Doug, hi, I'm Darren. We met at Jimmy's." "Dean, hello." I point to myself to avoid confusion. "Darren." Doug points to himself. "Doug, sorry." "No big deal." I smile to underline it. "You guys feel like pizza?" "It's a football game," Jimmy says. "It's pizza." "I'll call it in. Pepperoni and mushrooms?" "Can we get half with no meat on it?" I quickly cut in. There is no good way to do this, but it seems like a reasonable way to go about it. "How about half with cheese and mushrooms and the other half with pepperoni and mushrooms?" Jimmy volunteers. I look up hopefully. Doug is looking at me like I'm different. "Sure," he says, "half with no meat on it." The way he says it, he might as well have said, "half with my spit on it." What hunger I had is now gone. I lean forward to scan the coffee table. A perfect row of magazines fan out from a stack of coasters in a brass holder. I look at one, Cat Owner. The August issue. Not quite believing there is such a thing, I pick it up and thumb through it. About what you'd expect from something you wouldn't believe, really. There are some perfectly sensible articles and columns celebrating cat foibles and companionship, and about taking care of your feline companions. But there are whole articles devoted to processing your grief when your companion passes, and fostering healthy emotional exchanges between you and your companion. I start to howl, then think better of it. Christ, I think, they must be joking. Still, I can't stop a snicker from escaping, so I show Jimmy the magazine. He half smiles and holds a finger to his lips. On the ESPN pregame show, Joe Theismann is talking about the Broncos' outside passing game. "The Chiefs will have to give plenty of leeway to the speedy receivers, but they can't afford to let Elway beat them over the middle, either." Patrice walks back into the room. "Doug," she quietly begins, "why haven't you run around yet?" I miss the middle part of this because her voice drops into a whisper, but I see that Doug is far more interested in what Joe Theismann has to say about the Chiefs and Broncos than about what Patrice has to say about whatever it is he hasn't done yet. "Doug, I asked you a question. Why haven't you run yet?" Patrice must be asking him something really private, the way she drops her voice out of volume. Maybe it's, "Why haven't you arranged the medicine cabinet alphabetically?" or "Why haven't you stacked your underwear by size and type? You know, briefs here, boxers there." Doug doesn't look at her. "I told you I went there." Doug is good at this too. I wonder if they are like this when no one is around, just louder. Suddenly Patrice shoots a glare my way. I don't see her do it, but I can feel those beady eyes on my forehead, like a laser sight for a military weapon. I look up to confirm my suspicion. "Do you like cats, Dean?" she asks. "I have two of them, and it's Darren." "Which one?" All three of us. It's true. Both of my cats are named Darren after me. I just couldn't think of anything to name them at the time. I recalled reading somewhere that George Foreman, the boxer, named all four of his sons George, and I thought that was a pretty cool idea. Patrice just looks at me like I'm different. We have Trevor, a Himalayan, and Gisela, an Abyssinian. What kind of cats do you have, Dean? I'm a real smart ass on this one. They're North Carolinian, from the pound. Real smart kitties, though. By the way, I wouldn't have believed there was such a thing as Cat Owner magazine until tonight, but here it is, and it's certainly odd. Well, there it is, and I certainly don't see what's so hard to believe about it, Patrice says. It's sort of like a four-headed cow, I guess. You just don't think there could be such a thing until one day you go to the Dixie Classic Fair, whip out 4 tickets, walk in to see the Freaks of Nature show, and there one is, smack dab in front of you. But that doesn't make it any less odd. I can't believe I said all this. I admit I'm feeling a little defensive, a little hostile, and I haven't chosen my words so carefully. Sure wish I could tug them all back in like a fishing line that's tangled the second it's cast. But there it is, a perfect example of mental disorder in a place that can tolerate no disorder of any kind. Patrice is doing her best to contain herself. That's fine, Dean. Please put the August issue of Cat Owner back in the correct order when you're finished looking at it. No problem, I nod. I look at Jimmy with my face twisted up in an apologetic scrunch. He's laughing silently. Doug didn't notice any of it. He's concentrating on Juan Jaworski, who's talking about Kansas City's defensive combinations. No longer a simple blitzing team with tough man-to-man corners, the Chiefs will surprise the Broncos with their pass rush combinations and flexible zones. With Smith and Thomas at their healthiest, they are bound to be in Elway's face most of the night, causing havoc on his straight drops. When the pizza comes, my hunger returns. Doug goes to the kitchen with the pies, where Patrice corrals him. Doug, you're not going to eat in the dining room, and be careful. I don't want to have to and you haven't yet. Why haven't you done yet? Doug is pretty calm in the face of this barrage. I will, dear. Just let me put these down and I'll take care of it. Well, do it now because, Patrice continues, you said you before the game started, and now it's about to start, right? Relax, dear. I will. Jimmy's on his way to the kitchen, but I'm hanging back, waiting for a sign from Doug or Patrice about how to handle this sociably. I don't want to repeat my four-headed cow performance, and I'm guessing Patrice figures I'm capable of the worst kind of disaster, whatever she considers that to be. Grab yourself a plate from the pile here, Darren, Doug says. We'll eat at the dining room table. Not those plates, Patrice suddenly interjects. My God, Doug, not for pizza. Use the paper plates and be sure to put baskets under them. I don't want another mess. Honey, don't worry about it, Doug says. Just leave this be. We'll be careful. Well, be careful because I don't want another mess. Carefully, I lift 2 pieces onto my plate, cutting away the edges as neatly as I can with a knife while trying not to get too much pizza stuff on the knife. I am terribly nervous, and I fear I'll bump into something, drip pizza sauce from the counter to the dining room floor, or compare Patrice to a four-headed cow before I've made it to the dining room table. But I make it fine, have a seat, and dig in. Sitting here with Doug and Jimmy is the first time I've felt even vaguely at ease, comparatively speaking. Of course, I'm still minding my manners like a schoolmarm, chewing slowly, sitting up straight, tucking my feet under the chair. Yet for all my vigilance, a mushroom slips from the side of my first piece, bounces off the edge of the plate, and lands on the table. It has broken through all the checkpoints, and I quickly move to scoop him back onto my plate. But not nearly as quickly as Patrice moves. Before I can get my napkin out of my lap, she has scooped it into her hand with a sponge and looks down at me absolutely incredulous at my clumsiness. Please be careful, she says between her teeth. Miffed, I watch her carry my mushroom back to the garbage can where she drops it. I would have eaten that one, I admit to myself, and for a second I consider walking straight over to the trash can, fishing it out, and noisily slurping it down in front of Patrice. But I think better of it since I can no more predict her reactions than I can my own. Just to my left, I notice one of her cats, a wide-headed, long-haired, flat-nosed one, is staring me down like I'm an intruder on its established turf. Sorry. You wish it was. We're about 50 minutes into the game, which is about 2 minutes of game time in the painfully slow world of Monday Night Football, where the action is continually interrupted by commercials and the most humorously inane commentary you'll ever hear in a football game. I'm settling in finally. The pizza is at rock bottom, and I'm actually getting comfortable on the couch, although I'm careful not to touch anything. Jimmy and Doug are each in his own world, and there's none of the conversation I'm used to enjoying while watching football games with the guys. Indeed, I'm beginning to doze a little, although I fight it. I do notice that one of Doug and Patrice's cats, Himalaya, I'm guessing, although I wouldn't know one from the other, has climbed upon the back of the couch. It perches there, and although I'm largely ignoring it, the cat is making me nervous for some odd reason. I figure it must be because it's a pure breed, and it looks so fragile under all that white to gray hair, with that smashed little face and those lucid blue eyes. I do not subscribe to Cat Owner magazine, but I do love cats. Yet this one I don't trust so much because it doesn't actually bother me, although it doesn't actually bother me enough to make me move. In fact, I'm beginning to nod off. It's been a long day, and this evening's palpitating tensions have strung me out something fierce. I know I'll only be out for a half hour or so I surrender to the impulse. And it's just as I do that I feel the slight vibration of the couch as the cat leaps from it. A second later, I notice the jarring screech of pain as the cat digs into my right ankle. I let out a yelp, and as I do, the cat digs deeper, trying to hang on. Although I'm furiously trying to get the thing off me, it occurs to me that this darn cat has had only a couple of feet to fall, and it overreacted badly in committing to such a poor decision. Of course, as I think this, I've got the thing by the scruff of the neck, and I'm trying to pry its claws out of my bleeding ankle. In a moment, I succeed, and that's exactly when the pain begins throbbing again. I've still got the cat, and my ankle is bleeding profusely into Doug and Patrice's pristine white rug. I cannot honestly say that I'm simply reacting in pain as I throw the cat across the room, right into the shelf full of glass Disney and cat curios. Himalaya clears them off with a slide, and about a half dozen break as they make contact with a large vase situated just beside the wooden entertainment center thing. By now, Patrice is standing there too, her face frozen in fear and horror and anger, her eyes glued to me. Doug, haven't I asked you to be careful with a cat? She isn't screaming. While her volume is loud, though, it is controlled. I am pointing to my ankle, still feeling the pulse of the pain, and yet I truly feel sorry for my reaction. I am so sorry, Patrice, I say. I will pay to replace everything. I am sorry, but the cat she directs her vituperation toward me this time. The cat did nothing. Now she turns back to her husband. Doug, haven't I asked you specifically not to throw the cat in this house? When are you going to listen to me? Whatever you say, Patrice, Doug sighs. He heads for the kitchen. I'm very sorry. I'll pay for everything, I remind her. Doug returns to the living room with a broom and a dustpan. Then I'll look at him hopefully, genuinely sorry for what I've done. Doug has started picking up the pieces of the fallen curios. Patrice stands over him now, fixing him with the same look she gave me. This is all your fault, having these precious things so carelessly arranged, she tells him, her voice again under control but loud. I will never forgive you for this one. All these special mementos, all destroyed. For the first time, I see Doug visibly angry. The back of his neck is reddening, and for once he actually looks at Patrice. There is not one precious thing in all this crap, Patrice, he says. It's all junk and you know it. I feel really awful. I can't believe I've reacted with this much force on the one hand, but on the other, my ankle is hurting like a son of a bitch, and the blood is still coming through my fingers. Jimmy returns from the kitchen with a few napkins. Doug, I say, I'm really, really sorry. The cat just dug right in, and it scared the hell out of me, and it hurts like shit, too. I'll replace it all. Please let me know how much, and I'll make good on it. It's no big deal, Doug says, just a bunch of worthless crap. The cat, too, though, Doug, I say. I didn't mean to do him any harm. It's a she, Patrice shrieks from the kitchen through her sobs. She's picking up the phone. From 3 punches I hear, I figure she's dialing 911, although I can't for the life of me figure why. Patrice, what are you doing? Doug asks. I'm now helping him pick up glass fragments, holding the napkin on my ankle with the other hand. Don't worry about this shit, Doug says to me. You just take it easy and I'll look at that ankle for you in a second. Patrice, what are you doing? Hello, police? There's a violent man in our house and I need you to send some... Patrice, put that goddamn phone down! Doug's sudden outburst surprises me and I look at Jimmy, unsure of what to do next. Yes, sir, a stranger. My husband brought him here and he's going berserk, throwing things, breaking our possessions. Patrice, goddamn, put that phone down! I hear Doug struggling to get the phone away from Patrice. And in a moment he's on the line with the dispatcher. Yeah, Phyllis, this is Doug Lonely with EMS. Yeah, look, my wife is just a little upset. There was an accident and one of our guests accidentally broke a couple of things, but that's it. No need for an officer, but if you have to send one, I certainly understand. Patrice runs out the kitchen, yells, "You evil man," as she passes Doug, and scoots on toward the back of the house. She is sobbing loudly as Doug puts the phone back. He steps slowly back into the living room, kneels down and looks at my ankle. You've got a couple of fairly deep gashes here, he says. He looks at Jimmy. You might want to run him by the emergency room. Wesley Long's the closest. He'll need a few stitches. Jimmy's alert, nodding his head. Right, he says. Anything I can do for you, Doug? Doug doesn't respond at first. He kneels down to pick up more glass fragments, I'm guessing, but I see him pick up just one, a large sliver, jagged and angular. Patrice continues sobbing and yelling at one or both of us, though I'm drowning it all out. Doug looks over at Jimmy, then me. You guys go on, he says, tapping the glass sliver in his hand. I can take care of this. He walks slowly down the hall toward Patrice's bellowing as Jimmy shoulders me toward the front door. As I hear a siren approaching in the distance, it occurs to me that although I feel I should say something to Doug, something to pacify him, I'm also glad to be leaving now. They're shorter, though. Thank God. This is called Service. There's a monster thunderhead puffing huge up there. Gonna rain like hell when it breaks. Run to the post office, but a sign on the door stops me there. Due to a burglary, we are no longer able to provide postal services here. Please use the main branch on Murrow Boulevard. I look at my watch. 15 minutes. No time. Then the cloud breaks. Huge, slow drops at first. Look down and watch one dissolve the addresses on two of my envelopes. In a couple of seconds, the others are sailing away in falling raindrops. Perfect. My mail, now non-mail, no postage even, just envelopes with God knows what going nowhere at all. Start walking, my head wet, clothes are getting that way. Nowhere to go, really. Catches my eye down an alley off left. A barber pole, candy-striped spiral, down, down. Rain pouring rivers from the skies, washing the streets in torrents. Brisk steps, half a block. Stop here. A huge barber shop, 5 chairs each and 2 rows facing. 2 old gentlemen sit opposite each other. Older gentleman on the right moves out of his chair, gestures into it. Other gentleman, frowning, counts a small wad of bills, counts again. My barber has long white hair slipping behind his ears. Must be 80. Smiles small. Have a seat, sir. Points to my mail, then a plastic table beside my chair. You can put that here. The seat is warm to slip into. Feels like an old sweater, a blanket in my mother's living room, my best friend's kitchen. Old comforts, like old addresses. I want my head shaved, getting too hot. He drapes the sheet over me, then puts the tissue collar around my neck. I'm an altar boy to his priest. His clippers buzz hungry through patches of my hair, glide over the growing bald spot, back of my ears, fingers brush by my ears. Hair falls gentle, safe from the rain's angry pounding. Can't shave your head, sir. Hands ain't so steady today. That's okay, you're doing good. The buzz ends. The old barber brushes my head free of loose hairs, then powders my neck. Slaps his hands with tonic, tremble as they meet the back of my skull. Hands vibrate, are firm, then weak. Warm rubs sliding over old headaches. Addresses? Addresses. How did I lose them? Where's it all going? Thunder, drums of war. The whole shop shakes. Other older gentleman stops counting his money, looks up at my old barber. Man alive, the other one says. He stops at that, shakes his head. This one may not end. My barber's voice is shaken. His hands tremble tonic through the scars across my head, under my ears. He stops, holds a mirror out in front of me. Take a look at this. I can't, somehow, then do. Face cracked like a half-boiled egg. Everything bent out of shape. A dog's fight, angry fists, a father's disease. I mumble something, an explanation, an apology, a plea, an address. He has no idea what I'm on about. It's what you asked for, sir. I catch his reflection, full of pity. Yeah, it's what I wanted. You did great. I couldn't shave it down today, sir. Hands ain't so good now. Hands did good. Up on my feet, he's pulling off my altar boy robe, brushing off more loose hair. Lightning, gunfire, all hell breaking loose. It's a real rinse out there. $6, sir. I give him 7. Thank you, sir. You're a good man. He's smiling, but streams now poured through worn paths, the pits and wrinkles of his eyes. What did he lose? Confused, I try to smile. I'm okay, I guess, but you... I reach for his hand. Thank you. It's what I wanted. It looks great. His hand warm, strong, a one-shake hand. Thank you, sir. A tear falls to the floor, then another, then one from me, then one on top of my head. All coming from the cracked, dirty ceiling, toppling from a cobweb, dripping down into our heads. Crying? Who lives here? What is this address? I let go his hand and pick up the envelopes. I say it through a crack in my voice. Gotta mail these. Step toward the door. You can wait this out in here if you like. Smiling, his dimples push toward the silver wings of his hair, falling light around his ears. Mouth opens, finds a voice. I wish I could, said simply to say it, but I do, really. I gotta go out in this, though, mail these things. Clutch the envelopes to my chest. No hair, no addresses, no postage. Other older man pipes up. Watch yourself out there in this. Take care of yourself, my barber ways. Come back when it gets too long for you. I step out into the deluge. The barber pole spirals brighter than a promise in this gray wash. I let the damn thing soak me down good. Now, I could step into traffic without looking. I could walk back to work. I could take off all my clothes and lie lifeless in the sidewalk. I could hold nothing back, rain like the world rains on me. Or I could come back to my barber in a week, maybe 2, when it gets too long for me. Thank you.